Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Victory Never Sleeps. I believe this is the third edition of, or is it the fourth of Adulting with Allen? Fourth. All right, here we go. Tonight, Lawspeaker is going to talk to us about time management and productivity, and that's certainly something that is near and dear to my heart. And I think that if we harnessed the power of making the best use of our time, we would see exponential results. Before we get into it tonight, you all may have been noticing that I've been plugging our Nordhoff fundraiser a lot lately. I'm going to continue to do that every week because it's working out pretty good. You guys have been amazingly generous, as you typically are. Got $43,781 still left on that loan. That was on a massive $245,000 loan, and we have paid off 82.1% of that in a very short amount of time, considering. So under 3 years, we've paid off a tremendous sum. You guys have been great. And since we've been asking on here, and that's, something that is not always comfortable, but is a truism in life. You don't get what you don't ask for. And so asking for y'all's help on here has moved that needle over the past couple of weeks, thousands of dollars. So we appreciate you. You guys are amazing. As we sit now, we $60 even from every AFA member would pay the Hoff off instantly. We appreciate all of the donations you guys have done. You guys are amazing. Thank you all so much. And as is typical, the generosity of GW Farnsworth starts out our broadcast with a $30 donation to the VNS Fund. Thank you so much.
Big time.
You are amazing, and you are very, very much appreciated, sir. That said, dates to be thinking about. Kind of the apex of our 30th anniversary celebration is at Midsummer at Odenshoff this year. That is, again, in the tiniest possible lettering, so I can't read those dates for you.
June 27th, 29th.
June 27th through the 29th. Be there or be square. We'd rather have you be there. Got a number of people coming out for it. It's going to be a big one this year. I'm looking forward to it, and we would love to show off the first half of the Asatru Folk Assembly to all of our amazing members and any guests that are listening to this show that might want to come check it out. We have had Odenshoff now for almost 10 years.
Wow.
We will be a couple months shy of it at Midsummer, but it's kind of a point of interest for some folks. We actually scouted that out 10 years ago at Midsummer. Directly after our Midsummer, the McNallans, myself, my wife Mandy, and some friends of ours, along with Gothi Thorgren, went and checked out the property that would become Odenshoff, did the walkthrough, and it's hard to encapsulate because doing that on that very first one, I've said this a lot on here, the distance between the couch and the door, that's the biggest distance. Breaking that surface tension of having nothing to having something. Everything else is gravy after that once you get the momentum going. But going from not having any Hoffs to taking that first step on getting the first one was a really powerful thing. And I was very blessed to be in the right place at the right time to be a part of. Also, in July, we will have the third annual Cigar Bloat at Cigarheim in Jackson County, Tennessee. That is the property that we purchased a little bit over 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago. It is what will be the capital of the Asatru Folk Assembly, where we are going to be operating from. It is where a number of us are moving to that county, myself and my family included, to establish ourselves in the community. It's the property that Tiershoff will one day be on, and we're very excited to have you guys there and to see the truly amazing place that it is. Uh, it's absolutely beautiful. It's a place that we're really proud of, and we'd love to have you guys join us for. Um, that's coming up July 25th through the 27th. And like I said, love to see you guys there. Lawspeaker, will you be joining us there this year?
Definitely, maybe.
All right.
And so far,
so you might see our Lawspeaker Allen Turnage there. You will definitely. I say that unless. So last year, I got skunked out of getting to go because it was that one day a year that all the airlines had all their computer stuff go down, and I was very frustrated. Turned out it was a great event regardless. Sad I wasn't going to be able to be there. I'm so looking forward to be there for this one and to meet all you folks there. If you're interested in going to any of these events, please reach out to your local folk builder, to our producer Nick, to myself. Anybody you can get your hands on in AFA leadership can get you set up and ready to attend. We'd love to see you at either or both of those events. And so be there and be part of this that we've got going on. And I think that leads into the other thing. If you are listening to this, if you watch the show, if you hear the show, if you share our views, if you are a heterosexual white person, come home to the Asatru Folk Assembly. We are doing some really spectacular things, and we would love to be doing those as a team with you on the team, with you in the AFA family. We use the term coming home a lot, but time and again, it's very heartening to hear that from people that join, that's really what it feels like. A lot of people may have questions or, concerns pursuing a new religious path in their life, and I get that. But one of the things that is the most special, I think, about Asatru, at least for our folk, is it is a coming back to what is natural to the blood and bone of our people. I felt that overwhelmingly when I came home to Asatru, and I would wish every one of you guys has that feeling. So runestone.org, check it out. Think about joining. No better time than now.
I felt the exact same thing, and I've said it many times. And it is your birthright to worship your gods in your own temple. And so we welcome you to share that experience. This is a tribal group. I'm reading a book about the difference between tribalism and individualism, but it's definitely your right and your privilege to be able to come and worship with us in the modern version of Asatru.
And, something else I want to add on that, and I've said this on the show many times, but I don't think it can be overstated. The more you move your life and the things in your life to synchronize and to harmonize and be in alignment with who you are, the better everything works and the better everything fits together. In the modern world, we've, sometimes by necessity, other times by convenience, had to learn to bifurcate, or not even bifurcate, but, well, there's that if it was just split between two, but it's not. We've compartmentalized the life we have with our friends, with our coworkers, with our families, and what we do at home, and maybe what we really think, into all these different categories. The more you build your family within your faith and your values, the more you express your faith and your values in your friend group, in your, work relationships, in the other ways that you interface with the world, the more you're able to do that, the better life works. And I mean that in just about every way that can manifest, the better things.
It brings your whole self into harmony. And that's so much of the mental problem that we have everywhere else, is that we practice one religion and a different philosophy and a different kind of politic, and then a different kind of economic. And the more you can harmonize all those pieces of your soul, which in our faith we realize that the soul is many facets. It's the 9-part soul complex, and the more that you can make those pieces work together in harmony, the more you are aligned with the will of the universe. I recently heard, and of course the Greeks wrote a lot more stuff down. I think we probably said the exact same things in just as much profundity, but I believe it was Seneca who said, "Become such as you are once you figure out what that is." And the longer I have practiced Asatru, the more I have realized that that's really what I was all along.
It brings up another thing, and I promise we'll get to the topic of the show here in a second, but a lot of these things up front I think are really important and worth leading off.
Well, I have another distraction too later on. So
Okay. So what I was going to say real quick is I really meant that earlier when I talked about a synergy. It's not just that all the parts don't conflict, and so there's an inherent harmony. When they're all clicking together, it becomes worth more than the sum of its individual parts. They build upon one another. Your religious practice should enhance your life as a husband or a father. That should enhance your, who you are at work. That should enhance what kind of a friend you are, what kind of a person you are in the other aspects of your life. All of those things should work together in a way that propels you forward at a faster clip than you normally would if you're doing them all piece by piece. They're working together. There's a power within that. And it's similar to the power that we get when we do things in ritual. Doing things as a group, we're building upon the momentum of each other. And there's truly a magic at play. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the idea of wholeness. We talk on here a lot about how our folks suffer from a soul sickness. The key malignancy of that is this separation, an alienation of us from our gods and our folk from what is the natural way of our people. The more we heal that, the more we become whole. That's the entire concept of health to our ancestors, was the idea of being whole. We are sick to the degree that we are compartmentalized. So keep that in mind. And Alan, for your other distraction.
Yes, a couple of things. First, a reminder that I do like to, I think of these shows, although separated apart. I'm always happy to entertain questions about, the previous shows. If you have a question about credit, health, or those sorts of things, that was the top of the first show, and that's my profession, bankruptcy law. So if you have questions about any of that, or health, or any of those, I also want to give a, speaking of which, in that mean, I want to give a shout out to Cliff Erickson, who ramped up my intermittent fasting practice. I was kind of lazily doing 18-6 and not really being very disciplined about it. But then when he came down for Charming of the Plow, we talked about it. He's doing 24, meaning eating 4 hours of the day and fasting 20 hours a day. So I started doing that. And I've lost 2 inches off my waist, a whole lot of weight, and feel a whole lot better. So thanks, Cliff. Thanks all you guys, Dr. whoever it is that did that research about 5 or 6 years ago that showed the benefits of intermittent fasting and autophagy and all the benefits of that for your body. And thank you to my lovely girlfriend, Ann, who cooks such delicious food that even though right after I eat it, I'm starving still, it is fantastic and healthy.
So everybody out there who's single, or if you are in a position where you can affect the attitudes of your life mate, that is a game changer. As somebody who's been in relationships with people who are not like-minded to us, and luckily settling down with Mandy, who is very much on the team and didn't come here as a +1, but was doing this with, before she met me. Having partners in your life that help you synergize with your goals are really important. Whatever your fitness goal is that you want to achieve, having a partner that helps you is a huge key to success, because it's really hard to be in a relationship where you're trying to be on a diet and they're trying to not be, or you're trying to, eat a certain way or live a certain lifestyle. And they're like, no, we need to go out. No, we need to eat this. It works really well when you have somebody who wants to help either engage in the same goals as you, or at the very least is supportive of facilitating that lifestyle. I've seen that with wives and girlfriends, or, I think I see it less often, but conversely with boyfriends or husbands who actively help support and facilitate those positive life changes. I've seen couples that mutually provide each other excuses to wallow in mediocrity or descend into obesity and ill health. And it's really easy when you have somebody else there, kind of giving you permission to be less. But it's awesome when you have somebody that, helps push you forward and helps, make those things work out. So that's awesome that you have that with your fasting, and I'm glad it's working out for you. Before we get in the meat and taters here, you guys are awesome. I appreciate y'all so much. Kyle in Tennessee donated $200 to help us pay off Nordhoff.
Wow,
Much
thanks,
appreciated, Kyle. Thank you. Angela in New Hampshire, and this is by no means her first donation towards it. She is stacking up, helping us out on this. $25 to help us pay off Nordhoff, much appreciated, and an additional $25 to help get the steeple repaired at Baldershoff, which is a project they're working on.
Yep.
And then yet another $25 to the VNS fund. So thank you, Angela. We really appreciate it. It means a lot. And Bill in Tennessee donated $60 to the Nordhoff fund, doing his part. We appreciate it. That is,
thank you.
Within a matter of minutes, getting us, the better part of $300 towards the goal is really remarkable. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you.
Right. It's a great honor to see how much help we can get from folk. And this is what I know, this is what you do it for. And I will say that's what I do it for, to see the great joy that we can bring to people who come with us down this journey that we are, where we're re-clearing this path to our own gods. It's beautiful.
Well, all right. Without further ado, Alan.
No, there is actually more ado, because I have another question.
Okay. All right. Continue with the ado.
Right. I'm starting with multiple distractions this morning. Or this evening. Not because I'm unfocused, really. But I had a question, and it came up in contemplating some of the other stuff. And so the question, and I hope I'm not out of order asking you this.
We'll see.
I know, right? But so when did you quit proclaiming to be perfect?
My claim to perfection is ongoing. Don't believe the hype. So it's funny you say that, because I believe that there's probably a certain segment of detractors that think that both I have claimed that I am at some point, and secondly, that I think that claim to be true. Neither of those are the case. I would like to think that I am moving closer towards perfection than I am drifting away from it. That's certainly my endeavor each and every day, but I have a long, long way to go before I get anywhere close to that.
Right. And as you know, the question was facetious, and, and I would certainly say the same about myself, that I am, I do the best I can with the resources that I have. I will say, I think it to be true about myself, and I know it to be true about you, that we operate in good faith in our best efforts to further the cause of the gods and our folk. And so I appreciate the efforts that you make and the efforts that all of us make toward making Asatru a little better as we regain our place in the modern world. And if you will indulge me, in this quote from Theodore Roosevelt that I have come to think a lot of, a reminder to all of us: it is not the critic who counts, not the one who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who stumbles, who comes short, who errs again and again, for there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great exhortations, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, and who, at the best, in the end, knows the triumph of high achievement. And if at the worst, if he should fail, he at least fails while daring greatly, for his place shall never be among the cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. And that's one of Roosevelt's most famous quotes from it's called The Man in the Arena. And, so I think that those of us who do recognize that we make mistakes. I think one of the great prideful things about Asatru, certainly one of the points of my practice, is that I own my mistakes, that the things I've done wrong, I admit that I've done wrong, and I try to make amends to those who I've wronged. And, I try always in furtherance and in service of the folk. But to those quitters and splitters and other bed shitters, I want to paraphrase a quote from Samuel Adams that was also one of my favorites. If you love respite more than duty, the tranquility of anonymity more than the animated contest of rebuilding our folk, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands that oppress you. May your chains sit lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that we ever called you kinsmen.
That Teddy Roosevelt quote has always been extremely inspirational to me. I read a 3-part biography series. I don't know, probably getting old, probably 20 years ago now. That was one of the best biographies that I've read. It was a 3-part biography, and it really impressed upon me what a spectacular man he was, in the sense that he was always a man of action, and he didn't come with good health or the natural ability to. He built that himself through consistent effort.
Willpower. It shows how much determination can change your physical and mental life.
Absolutely. And that's always been a great inspiration to me. And just to tag along on, your comical question about my own perfection, that reinforces another theme on here that I think it's good to reiterate. None of us are perfect. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be out there trying. The moment is never perfect. If we wait around for the perfect time to do the perfect thing in the perfect way, we will never do anything and take that most difficult step that I started the show talking about, from the couch to the door, because we can spend the rest of our life planning for theoretical perfect, getting out there and making stuff happen while we're pursuing that perfection. That's
And I think it's certainly a fear of a lot of the folk who might step into leadership as a folk builder, or, take the next step in and become a Gothi. That you're afraid you're going to mess it up. But, the worst mistake is not to do anything. And yeah, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have moots where you do the wrong thing, you say the wrong thing, you show up at the wrong time, you ruffle a couple of feathers. You know what? Life goes on. It's things are going to continue, and it's going to be better for your effort. You'll get better as you get practice at it. And the more you tilt at these windmills, the more assailable it becomes.
That has certainly been my story involved in the Asatru Folk Assembly. I didn't start out anybody special. I didn't get to where I am through any, I don't know, through anything that you'd see on paper as some kind of built-in momentum towards leadership or success. It's come through just trying hard and trying to find ways to devote myself as fully as I could to this that we're doing. And I think that showing that effort, if it's done with piety, I think you've got a lot of advocates on the other side of the veil that help push you forward a little bit when that happens, be it your ancestors, be it our heroes, and be it ultimately, if we're lucky, our gods themselves. So I also want to say this to start off, and I know we keep finding other things, but we will get to the time management bit here in a second. But I want to say that something that I've seen well-intentioned people make a mistake on: religion isn't a science, it's an art. If you're trying to find the perfect secret code to unlock the mysteries of the universe, it doesn't work like that in real life. If we believe that our gods are sentient gods that are wise and that are good and honorable, then our gods can surely tell the difference between good intention and poor, and between action and inaction. A lot of people, and they mean this extremely well, but out of piety, they don't want to take some of those first steps because they don't want to accidentally do it wrong. They don't want to mess up. This is too important to mess up. And I get that. 1,000%. But sometimes you have to take a little bit of faith that our gods are going to judge you fairly, because our gods are noble, and give it your best effort. Every experience I've had in my life tells me that that's in keeping with their will, and that's appreciated by them. So I'd urge everybody, today's the day. Go out there and make the effort. And sure, down the road, you may have a cooler altar, or you may have refined your practice, or you may have, found infinite ways to do it better. And by all means, I encourage you to do so. But in the meantime, get out there and worship our gods. Get out there and come home to the faith that you were born to be a part of. And I think that's all I've got for beginning of the show distractions.
Now that the introduction is up, like with a lot of topics in adulting, first of all, YouTube is rife with time management tools. So my approach to these things, time management in particular for tonight, but my approach to these things is more about getting the mindset. And because the rest sort of falls into place once you adjust your internal cognition to that sort of alignment, I think. So, and there are lots of tips and tricks out there, and I'll talk about a couple of them, but part of it to me, and I'll tell you, hopefully not too boring story about one of the ways I adjusted my own attitude. A lot of it is mindset, and it's approaching life. It's approaching your obligations with joy. And that's one of the things, we and Matt, I think you're largely responsible for it. We talk about love, the love we have for each other and for the gods and for our folk. But I think joy is a big part of it too. This life for us is not a vale of tears. This is the chance that we have to make these connections, to meet and love and be kind and be angry and do all the things that we do as human beings here. But this life is a life of joy, and your responsibilities are responsibilities of joy. And the way that I hit that spot in my head is years and years ago, back in the day when I had a swimming pool, I, go schlupping out to the pool, and I pick up the net, and I'm, grouching at myself, God, I got to take care of this stupid swimming pool. And it was like right at that moment, I had that thing. It's like, hey, I have a swimming pool I get to take care of. And so, it's just one of those light bulb moments where it pivoted my whole understanding internally about about the approach to these sorts of things. Yes, it was a distraction, but it was, at that point, and from then on, it was a thing of joy. The place that we have now, it's not, I got to get out and mow the grass. It's, wow, I have this field that I have to go and mow, and take care of the grapevines and the pecan trees that I've got out here. So, life is joy. Responsibility is happiness. And share another one of my favorite quotes. Cowards want, men owe. And, and so we owe each other this duty of joyfulness and bounty to each other. And managing our time more efficiently is just a way of, is just a tool to be able to use that. And so for myself, and I realize I'm a couple of years older than everybody else in the AFA put together. So I grew up in an era when there weren't cell phones and that sort of stuff to set these sorts of reminders. I had to write stuff down on a piece of paper. I know this is primitive technology, but one of the things that I personally would urge people to do if you're having trouble with getting through your stuff every day is try to rely less on your cell phone. Because I find that the clients that I talk to, especially who, have everything now on their cell phone, if it's not in there, it doesn't exist. So it's, write a list, or even better, don't have a list. Think I've got these four, when you're going to bed, I've got these four things I have to do tomorrow. And those are, and then when you wake up, you don't need a list. You don't need a phone. You don't need a reminder. You don't need Microsoft telling you to, how to live your life. You can do it for yourself. And then, for the time management and for the procrastination, to get over that sort of thing. I think one important aspect of that is to get up and make your bed. And that, again, that sounds like it has no relationship to this topic, but if you can start the day being productive and turning your bed from disorder into order, you can get that sense of accomplishment. My life is better. My life is more ordered because I took 3 minutes out of my not too very busy day and, and knocked out this one small chore. When I do think through my day, and I do sometimes make lists if I have more than 4 things to get through, but I like to knock out a couple of small things like that first thing in the morning, whether it's just something simple, taking out the trash, watering the plants, doing a couple of small things like that. And again, it reinforces that idea that you can do everything that you need to do. So you knock down a couple of small things, and I tend to put the one big thing, whatever that's going to be, I put it in the middle of my morning. And the reason is that after I've done a couple of small things, I can sort of take a deep breath, gather myself, and then call that client that I've been putting off, and have a difficult conversation with them, or, do some of the other more difficult, more time-consuming, more gut-wrenching, because I think that's the biggest impediment that most of us face to doing any of these sorts of things. It's not actually doing the task most of the time. It's screwing up the courage to get in there and, crank the mower or pick up the phone and make the call. And if you do, if you do that, again, the middle of the morning, then you got some time to recuperate by the end of the day, and you will have knocked out one of those more difficult chores and gotten over it. I know another famous saying from the old days is, if you want something done, ask a busy man. And that's because people like, and I find, and I'm certainly the same way, if I have 20 things to do, I get it all done. If I have 2 things to do, nothing happens. It always just seems like there's more time to put off until tomorrow. But then when do you do tomorrow's work? So, I think if you think of all of it as joyful and important as parts of your life that need to be done, that can be done, that those are things that we can be and think of ourselves as helping the folk, helping your family, whatever it takes. And again, it seems to me that the mindset is the most important thing. Going shopping will help my family eat better. Mowing the grass will help my family have a better life because the ticks won't be as bad everywhere. So there's always a way to frame the chore in a way that makes it seem happy and important. And I think those are, the rest of the stuff, I've got a list that, of other stuff that I glean from several different sources. But if you can turn the thing so that you're aligned with having these chores and responsibilities be what you want to do, not as a way, something that you have to do, then the rest just happens.
Well said. And I think that what a lot of folks need to realize and internalize, like most of the things that get brought up when we're doing episodes or when we're discussing adulting or any kind of self-improvement in your life, habits are tricky things to form. It's not like you can just get up one day and do these things and your whole life changes. You have to consistently make it a routine to where you're doing these things, even when you don't want to. It takes effort. Most things that are worth having in life do. But the more you can build a routine in your life to where it's just what you do, the easier that becomes.
And don't beat yourself up. And don't beat yourself up when you slip a little bit, because that too is an easy habit to get into. I should have done all this, and blah, I'm a terrible person. I'm just a slug.
Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Man, I shouldn't have had those French fries. Well, that's it. Screwed up my whole diet. I might as well eat, a tub of ice cream every day for the next week. And that sounds really stupid to say. There's a whole lot of fat people out there. That's a large part of how they got that way.
I see what you did there. A large part of how they.
I see. I didn't see what I did there, but I will take it. I will own it, and retroactively, I'll pretend it was on purpose. While I'm on it, not related, Alexander. Thank you, Alexander Casto, our spectacular folk builder in Northern Florida, bought us coffee. We appreciate that. We appreciate all you guys and your awesome donations. You guys are amazing. I think that what Alan said about starting off your day doing something productive to where you can build on that, even if it seems small, I mean, you're not necessarily trying to impress anybody else. If you can demonstrate to yourself your capacity to accomplish something, that's huge. And it's way bigger than most people think. I think everybody is looking for that one huge victory that's worth the time in doing. Like, man, if I do this thing, then we'll conquer the world. That's awesome. Keep your eye open for that. By all means, if that presents itself to you, jump on it. But more often than not, victory in anything you're trying to do in life is one, it's an inch at a time until you get there. And as I mentioned earlier, the couch to the front door is the hardest step to take.
And if you don't have that habit of stepping into the breach at every opportunity, then when that big door does open wide, you're not even going to see it. When you're waiting for the one big strike.
Well, okay, so that's
games.
That is a really good point. You have to put yourself in the places where things happen to realize opportunity. I've mentioned before on this show, when we veer into a bit more overtly esoteric topics, one of the big keys of magic is drawing synchronicity towards you and being able to recognize synchronicity when you see it. It's really hard to see that when you're not where anything happens. We have a whole lot of young men. I don't know if this is the case with ladies or not, but a whole lot of young men that really wish they had a partner in their life, and they'll at some point resign themselves like, well, one day the right woman will find me and it'll all just work out. And, I mean, how many of those right women are walking through grandma's basement? I don't think grandma counts. I think she's taken. You got to be where people are at to find success. Good things don't just come to you, but what does happen is when you go out and you put forth the effort consistently, that does draw things towards you. If you're out there trying, you're primed to draw those things towards you through your successful habits and through consistently being in the right place. And you're primed to recognize when those opportunities present themselves. But all of that has to do with, getting out and getting in the game. You lose 100% of the games you don't play.
And speaking of morning routine, I'm going to put in another plug for cold shower. I know you're not a fan, but, that too is one of those tests of will, when you can stand there in front of that shower head and know it's going to suck for like 30 seconds till you get used to it. But you're stronger than that cold water. And so, with a couple of chores and some willpower, the rest of this stuff's easy.
So I am not an advocate of the cold shower thing personally. I think that is needless flagellation in my circumstance. It may not be in another person's, but joking aside, that's a good point. And it's something that Joe Rogan talks about on his podcast too. He likes to start his day doing a cold plunge in like an absurdly cold plunge. And for, trying to push the amount of time he's in the plunge, because it's like, if you start your day doing something really unpleasant and really difficult, then the rest is easy. It's downhill from there. If you start with a big win, you're like, I am warm. I am cozy in my bed. I'm going to just lay here and look at my phone and leisurely whatever, that's very seductive. If the last thing in the world you want to do is get up and turn cold water on yourself, and you are able to muster up the cojones to go do that, that really does position you in a good way for the rest of the day. I don't like it. Not telling you that's what I'm going to do tomorrow, but truth is one of our virtues. And I do have to say there is merit in that. And don't get hung up. Cold shower could be something really different wherever you're at, but whatever that difficult thing is to do, there's value in doing it, especially if it has some positive result, especially if it's something productive. But, in this life, don't miss opportunities for wins. We need to stack all the wins we can get. There's value to it. And starting your day with something is a really, really good way to do that.
Big time. And I think about some of the more embarrassing times that I've had, and again, one of the ways that I will phrase it as have and will again, once you've had a judge yell at you in front of your client, being a little bit embarrassed about, stumbling in a conversation or, saying not the exact right thing to somebody, it's small potatoes. And I think that's true for all of us. And we're always afraid of, stumbling awkwardly through whatever it is, but it's going to be okay. Because the other person feels the exact same thing. And, if you're making an effort, you're making a genuine effort to reach out to them and be a good person. They will detect that at that gut level, and you'll get through it, and it'll be okay.
Something I found in my life and my experience that's true time and again, the scariest thing is the unknown. We put things off and we avoid things that scare us because we are worried about what will happen. And we build that unknown in our head to be worst case scenario. It's even scarier if we can't put a definite image of what that might be, because then our mind just goes to, ridiculous things. Very seldom have I had the experience in my life where I just man up and do something I don't want to do, that I don't feel better on the other side of it. And I've used this analogy before, but I think it's like puking. You can spend a whole day trying to hold it back and not people can sit there and breathe and okay, I'm going to be really still and you can battle that for a whole day, or you can just go puke and get over it, puke and rally and go on to the next thing. And it's one of those reflexes that I think we all struggle with. And, the things that you imagine the worst on or psych yourself out of doing are probably really different than the things that I do in my head, probably different than things Alan does. But we all have those things. Getting on the other side of them is really important. And the other thing I was going to say is, by doing things that are uncomfortable and putting yourself in spots that are outside of your comfort zone, you build a certain amount of self-confidence. And just like Alan was mentioning, people smell that on you. They smell good intention. It's one of the reasons that, dogs are good judges of character, is they can kind of read a lot of subtle things that we aren't used to looking for when we're analyzing speech. And they can tell, is this guy a decent guy or not? That dog doesn't speak English, but he can kind of tell if something's a threat, if, you can pick up on those things. People do that with self-confidence too. If you go in and you try something and you have some self-confidence and you're able to roll with it, even if it doesn't get perfect, you will go a long way. The more you are
fake it till you make it is definitely a real thing in that scenario. You can
and dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Right.
Doing those things to project who you want to be, even if you're not quite there yet, that will eventually get you there, get you a long ways towards it. So, and again, it's really easy to twist that. There's ways to do that dishonestly, and then there's ways to do it aspirationally.
And the
If you were
dishonest peels, people could sense that too. The guy who is full of hubris and self-importance, and he's doing he can say pretty much the same thing in pretty much the same way, but you can just, you can just smell insurance salesman all over him.
We have a way of smelling authenticity. So I'll tell you this, and this may speak to a number of things, but so I revert to bouncing stories every now and again, and this isn't as fun of a one, but it's something interesting, especially if you work at a club that's really high volume with the amount of IDs you look through. You always, wonder, and you can try to perfect the things you think you look for on the IDs and all this stuff. But when we'd have a little bit of a slow night when I was running security, I would go out every now and again with a handful of confiscated IDs. I would randomly hand them to people in the line and tell those people to test my security and see if they catch them. My security failed 100% of the time. Well, and here's what it is, which is stupid. We have a way of sensing when somebody's up to no good. And the first thing you pick up on, because that's the deal. When I say they failed 100% of the tests, each of them would pocket, a handful of IDs every night. They would stop underage people all the time. But the way you're doing it's not by data. That's how you confirm it. The way you do it is something tingles in your medulla oblongata, and you're like, okay, something's not right. Now let me look closer. As long as somebody's going in there confident they're not doing anything wrong, it doesn't trigger that. And that's a magic that I don't think we harness enough for all kind of things. If you're confident in what you're doing, stuff just tends to work out. If you're acting shady and acting suspicious and you reek like there's something you should be worried about, then you draw suspicion from everyone around you, and it makes everything in life harder. So do the hard things, rise to the challenges, and develop confidence in yourself. That will take you so far.
And it'll develop a thicker skin on you too. Because you'll meet those failures. You'll fail sometimes. You rough yourself up, but the sun comes up the next day. You still have a delicious meal that night. I mean, you can mess up pretty bad and still be pretty okay. So
one of the best things ever happened to me was getting punched in the face. That's the thing, is if you don't know what it's like and you're scared of it. I got punched in the face really hard by a giant Samoan man, and I was able to get back up, and it was all right. And I lived, and I was able to go on. Being able to recover and realize it's not so bad is a very liberating experience. Don't intentionally lose so you get hit, but you learn a lot more from the times you get knocked down than the times you sail through. So by not getting in the game, you lose the opportunities to win, and you also lose the opportunities to learn. So do you have more for us at this juncture on time management?
Oh, there actually is one other. And again, I am all about some old school technology. And one of the tips that I did read that resonated with me, because I had to stop doing it, is about multitasking. Because what evaluations have shown is that you don't multitask. You're not doing three things. You're doing one thing at a time in three different spheres. And it takes extra time to change tasks. So multitasking is not a thing. You're not doing two things. You're doing one thing and then one thing and then one thing and then another thing. And and you might think you're being more productive, but you're almost certainly being less productive. And the other thing that was not on any of the lists that I found, but to me ties in with that idea of not multitasking, is Again, I know I'm going to draw a position here, but it's to learn to operate in silence. Like even background music, because I've gotten myself now in this mindset where I like to work in the quiet, and music has its place. Like I know a lot of guys like to lift with music, or work out with music, but for me, if you're working, if you have a task that you are trying to accomplish, I'm not talking about the simple stuff that you can do while you're, of course, I listen to books instead of music, but if you're cleaning the house or those sorts of things, but if you have something that you really need to focus on, the fewer distractions you have out there, and so that you're only doing that one thing, that that I think will help you get through that one hard thing. I remember working with a guy, and I thought it was the oddest thing at the time, but his desk was always completely clear. And he would get one piece of paper, whatever he was working on, he had that one thing on his desk, and he would do it, and then he'd put that away and get the next thing. My desk is a little more chaotic than that, because I have projects in various stages of completion, but I've come to sort of admire the single-minded focus that the guy was able to bring to a multi-person office where it's like all these open desks and there's all this stuff going on, and he would just sit and work his thing. And so I now understand why he did it. And I know that comes out of that single handling rule that with mails, I know for us now it's email. The goal always is to get this correspondence, reply to it, and then it's behind you, and not, there are some few that you have to be a little more circumspect about and take a little more considered response. But most of the stuff that we do, it's just easier to get it done than to stew on it.
Well, I think some of that's really well said. And the other thing that's like diet and exercise, there's a lot of right ways to do it, but intention is really important. Whatever you do it on purpose to achieve a result, and then evaluate, did you get closer to your purpose or not? There's probably a lot of different ways to help people focus in different scenarios. And maybe what works for Alan or maybe what works for me isn't what works for you. But find what works for you and be striving towards that. Try stuff until you find what does work. The other thing I'll say is getting one thing done and accomplished is much better than halfway doing 20 different things that never get accomplished. But before we venture too far, Tyler White has a question, and I think I would like to answer it before, while he's still with us. I don't know if he's going to listen to the whole program tonight or not. Y'all should open a church here in Kentucky so that I can join. Tyler, you should join so that we can open a Hoff in Kentucky. And I say that not to be comical. We have members all across the United States and in 12 different countries around the world. We only have 4 Hoffs because where we get our next Hoff is determined largely by where we have a stable group of people that get together and worship together to sustain a Hoff. But we have members in Kentucky, absolutely. We mentioned at the top of the show, we have a property that is going to be the AFA's capital in coming years as we develop it. And that's in Jackson County, Tennessee, where a number of our leadership are going to move to, hopefully membership as well, and really become part of that community. And that is in north central Tennessee. It's fairly close to the Kentucky border. But, depending on where you are in the state of Kentucky, we have some amazing things going on in southern Indiana, in southern Ohio. We have things going on all the way around your state, and we do have members in your state. So you should absolutely join and see what you can get going where you're at. Anybody who's interested, the place to do that is runestone.org. That's where you join. That's where you can find out contact information, our core documents. We have a library there that you can read past publications and things of interest that way. It's an important tool, so I'd encourage you to check that out. And we need the way it works though is we need folks to join and be stable somewhere, being active for us to invest in a HOF in that area. And
he's really close to Sigerheim, so he could come to the event that's coming up when?
You should come check it out. Sigerbloat, July the 25th through the 27th. That's at Sigerheim in Jackson County, Tennessee. That's just one county south of the Kentucky border. Absolutely should come check that out. I'm going to be there. Lawspeaker might be there. Producer Nick will definitely be there. And got a number of other AFA luminaries that would love to meet you if you come. So,
and this is again, we're sort of victims of our own success here. When I started practicing that Asatru these many years ago, there was one regional gathering in the state of Florida and Georgia per year. And when I joined the AFA as a folk builder, I was the folk builder in 4 states. So, and then, it took us 10 years after that to get our first HOF, which was in California, which is a long way from Florida. But, yes, we would love to have, the goal is to have a HOF within a short driving distance of everyone. And we're getting there, and the sooner we're getting Yards HOF paid off, the quicker we can get Phrase HOF, and that will be maybe a little closer to you there in Kentucky. But we're getting there a little bit at a time. But in the meantime, there are Tennessee folk that you can meet with, there are Kentucky folk that you can meet with, and get together and have a couple of beers and a pizza at a local pub, and realize just exactly how much we all have in common, having found our way to this path.
Absolutely. And for anybody who's curious, as Alan mentioned, paying off Njordshof gets us to start looking for Phrashof, and that's the plan. And we're always, chomping at the bit to try to make that happen when we're able to. And getting that obligation paid off first is the first step towards that. The plan as it stands now is to get Phrashof in Eastern Ohio or Western Pennsylvania. That's the sweet spot that we're looking for. And Tiershof, as I mentioned before, is going to be on that property I mentioned in Jackson County, Tennessee. So that's pretty close to you. We're going to build an amazing HOF there. We've got plans that a lot of folks are very excited about. But we've got to get Njordshof paid off, and we got to get Phrashof before we can get cracking on that. So these are the things to keep in mind. But we've got all these plans. Alan mentioned when he joined, what it was like. So many people don't realize just how special it is that we're in a time where there is HOFs. For the longest time, I remember reading. Our founder, Steve McNallen, came home to Asatru in 1968, and in the early 70s, he published something called the Runestone, and it was, started out as a really humble publication, but it was, the kind of the voice of Asatru at the time. And I remember reading, editions from the 1970s that, man, any day now we're going to have a HOF. Took us all the way till 2015 in order to make that happen, and now. 10 years later, we have 4 HOFs. We're working, we've got solid plans for the next 2. So we have been greatly blessed, both by the benevolence of our gods and by the generosity of our folk to be able to make that stuff happen. So we're excited.
And I know it's a pain in the neck to think about driving. And man, I'd love to go down there, but it's 3 hours or whatever. And, up until 100 years ago, 3 hours of travel would be, 2 hours of hitching up the team and loading the wagon and, clomping your way 6 or 8 or 10 miles, to go to the nearest temple. So getting in your car and putting cranking the car and putting some gas in it and getting an extra cup of coffee and driving for 3 or 4 or 6 hours is not that big of a burden for you to overcome, to come and meet with your folk. It is worth it every time.
It absolutely is. And we have somebody in the chat room that, he's recently moved to Missouri and was wondering where the closest Hoff to him is. Chances are that the closest Hoff to you is going to be Baldershoff, all the way up in Murdoch, Minnesota. Moving to Missouri, you're you're a fur piece from any of our extant Hoffs, but hang in there, because Tiershoff is going to be the closest one to you,
any day now.
Hope any day now, hopefully within the next, few years, if we can make it happen.
Right.
So,
and again, get together with some of your friends and raise a horn to the gods. There is not a right way to do it.
So at runestone.org, where I mentioned going earlier, there's a calendar there. And you can look at the calendar and see just how many small AFA gatherings happen every single week, and just how broad the geographic scope of where those are. I think a lot of people would be very surprised that we may have stuff occurring relatively close to them. And we'd love you guys to attend those and be part of things and get out there and fellowship with your folk. So absolutely, please check out that calendar.
And it's a great thing to come to a Hoff. And I even though I grouse about having to do food pantry, I know it is a rare privilege to be able to be an hour and a half from Njord's Temple. And so that is a great and wonderful thing that we have done and are doing. But that does not take away from a few guys in Missouri or Kentucky getting together and honoring the gods and building bonds of friendship and frith between each other in a less formal way. That is absolutely part of getting this thing done.
I was going to say, not only is it part of it, that's an essential step to getting a Hoff. A lot of people come in, I want to say midstream, but not really. They come in after so much has been established, and they see that, and they don't realize all of the effort that's gone in to make it happen. A lot of people, it doesn't occur to them that in order to have a Hoff somewhere, what needs to happen is, first, some folks in that area need to join. And they need to start getting together with one another. Ideally, one of them or somebody close to them, somebody in that small seed group, steps up and says, hey, I'd like to be a folk builder and work towards making it happen. And that's how stuff grows, develops, and becomes an area that we look very seriously at putting a Hoff in. And that takes consistency, and it takes dedication, and it takes years. But that's how all of our previous Hoffs have happened. That's how our future Hoffs will happen. And, again, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Right. And I'll say this too, in another shameless plug for your careful stewardship here, is there is certainly a model out there that has been exemplified by, I don't know, the worst capitalist element, if that's the way you want to say it, of borrowing lots and lots of money and, growing too fast. And, we theoretically, we could do that and spread ourselves too thin. But we are being careful and growing judiciously in order to keep from doing what so many young enterprises do and collapsing of our own weight.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that, because it's very important, and we want to secure not only that we have the money to get a Hoff. For a long time, raising enough funds to get a Hoff seemed an insurmountable goal. We've got that part figured out. That's not the hard part. The hard part is doing that in a way that we can make sure that we're able to maintain it, to care for it, and to have it in perpetuity. Once we dedicate a Hoff to one of our gods, we are obliged to be good stewards of it and to care for it. We don't want to give one of our gods a Hoff, their first Hoff in 1,000 years, and then have to sell it off or get rid of it or something because we didn't do our job fiscally and planning for it and in our commitment level of taking care of it. We never want to do that. So it takes a little bit longer than perhaps it could, but the fastest way is not always the best way.
Naysayers notwithstanding.
I would be happy to hear how they're able to acquire their Hoffs and conduct the finances of their Hoffs.
They couldn't conduct the finances of the morning shift at a McDonald's.
And thus the inside joke that they don't have Hoffs. So let's get to a couple of questions here. We got some folks asking stuff early on in the broadcast.
The next one real quick, though. I actually did want to mention to Tyler, your the initial person who asked the question. We are actually currently planning a hike moot outside of Louisville in Kentucky for May. Reach out to folk builder Heather Young, or Githya Heather Young. My apologies. hyoung@stone.org. We got a member out there who wanted to get together with some folks, so we're doing it. And to anybody else, as we said, if you want to do something, if there's not something on the calendar in your area, reach out to us. We'll get something going.
Absolutely. And thank you for interjecting on that. Nick is probably, again, Kentucky is in an interesting spot because we've got activity on kind of all sides of it. So if you're in the very center of Kentucky, you're probably the farthest you are from AFA activity, but you're still not but a couple hours.
Right.
And if you find yourself on the edges of Kentucky, chances are we've got some really cool things for you. If you're on that southern edge, I've talked about Sigerheim a number of times on here. Nick is the folk builder for that area. He is the first to answer the call and pack up and move out there and work towards making that happen and establishing a beachhead there. So he is eager to meet with you and do things with you if you find yourself in that part of the world. Again, lots of good things, and I hope that you reach out, Tyler. So question I was going to get to was asked early in the show. What is your opinion? And I'll let Alan hit this first. What is your opinion on the New Age saying, spiritual but not religious? Do you think religion has become a dirty word because of Abrahamic religions?
I wouldn't say that it's certainly become tainted or associated with the idea of the Abrahamic religions. And for so many people in the West, their only association becomes a lot more, because we do like to think in terms of binomial choices, right? You're either a Christian, Jew, Islam, or you are an atheist. So it's and the shades of gray in between in there are really the shades of the rainbow that are in that are in our faith, and the other dharmic faiths, to use Acharyaji's word. Those are so much more varied than the mainstream gives them credit for. And I think that we are in this point in the development of civilization where those people are just sort of unmoored. They've fallen out of faith with the Christian ideology for all the reasons that we could talk about, but they haven't found their way to their own natural organic faith. And So, and frankly, I think that's what that means when they say spiritual but not religious. That they have that underlying yearning for something more, but they don't really know how to find it. So they think of themselves as spiritual, but they haven't found the right religion. That would be how, like, if I was having that conversation with them, that's what I'd tell them. You just have to find the right religion, because spirituality without religion is like an analogy without a conclusion. I can't think of the right exact parallel there, but but if you're a spiritual person, you should find a religion, because, or just having some vague thought like the earth is groovy and I love people, that's just not enough to satisfy that hunger, it seems to me.
So that is a generous middle ground that you took on that, Alan. And I think that I was going to say there's two instances of people who would say something like that. And I will allow for three now. So Alan's position, and I think there was a time, certainly in like the 60s and 70s in this country, my uncle was kind of that guy, that there was a real break from traditional, quote unquote, American religions and a search for spiritual meaning somewhere else. And I think that led a lot of people to a lot of diverse places. I think that led people to the Far East, be it Hinduism or Buddhism or another ism of Asia. I think that it also led a lot of people to pursue Native American fetishism. Again, I don't think always wrong-headedly, but with an idea, okay, we know this thing isn't right, so we need to find what is, and we're not aware of our options. We don't know what that is. And I think that that's a legitimate thing, is people genuinely don't know what to call it, but they know it's not the things that they're used to being called religion. I think there's another group of people that are very much to your question, that have been traumatized by Abrahamic faiths. And again, it's probably different in different parts of the world, but I think that in the United States, people who are traumatized by their experience in the Christian church, to where they become very disillusioned, perhaps disgusted, and in some cases, perhaps literally abused. And so they tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and anything that says religion or quote unquote organized religion, is anathema to them, or at least they think it is, because of the really bad experiences they've had in their past. And they often define the words there. It's funny because in that instance, it's so much about the nomenclature and not about the substance of a thing. It's if they recognize a term from their Christian upbringing, it immediately triggers them. Not to use the word as lightly as some do these days, but it has a lot of bad associations for them. And I think those people do that you just said. But I think what's more and more common that we see very, very often is people that want to have the benefit of religion without the commitment, that don't want anybody to tell them what to do, but still want to cling to a higher power. So, well, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, so I can kind of do whatever I want and make up whatever mental gymnastics and I've known a lot of people that way. And you see people like that of all different stripes. You see that with, the goth chicks. You see that with various dreadlock Indian restaurant barefoot sitar playing guys. You see that with a whole variety of well-meaning people in between. You see that with the crystal wine moms. I say that as I'm enjoying my vino here, but a lot of different people fall into that category, some more well-meaning than others, but a lot of the time it really is about a deep distrust for wanting to be part of something, because as soon as you sign on and you're part of a structure, then you're accountable. You're accountable to others. You're accountable to a structured conception of God or gods. You all of a sudden establish a standard that you have to live up to and be judged by. And that's really scary to a lot of people. And I think that's what you see a lot. That's one reason that I try to shy away from that as much as I can. I know that when I became heavily involved in Asatru, using words like religion or proselytizing or church or those things were very off-putting to a lot of people. And I'm sure they still are. But I've really leaned into those heavily because that's what we're doing in a lot of ways. And I don't think that we live up to our value of truth to pretend it's something other than that. I think to face the concepts and realize that we were a pious and religious people before the coming of, Middle Eastern Christianity to Europe. And it's our birthright and what we ought to do to be part of an ordered and structured religiosity. Our gods are the gods of order, not the gods of chaos. So I think religion's absolutely appropriate, but it scares a lot of people for a variety of reasons.
And, again, to like one of the several things that come to mind while you're talking about that, what these, I can't remember who it was where I first read about it, but so they talk about the New Age buffet, where you can go do a little bit of Indian religion and then do some Buddhism and throw in some crystal healing and do all of that. But what they don't understand, refuse to understand, is that Hinduism, is at heart is a deeply religious, it's not a spiritual practice. It's a religion with millions of gods. Buddhism, and it's actually one of the things that they were mocking in this context, the kind of Buddhism that caught on in the United States is Zen Buddhism, which is essentially, there's a long explanation about whether Buddhism even believes in God, or in Zen, whether there's a God in Zen or not. But every other place where Buddhism is practiced in a deeply integrated way with hundreds and hundreds of local gods. So so some North American to pick up, just a little bit of the thing out of the buffet and think that they're practicing Buddhism or Vishnaism is way off base. And for so many of the Wiccans, and in a lot of ways they've opened the door to more, I don't want to say nature-based practice, but just, I guess because they had a 100-year head start on us, they seem to be out there a little bit more. But one of the books that years and years ago helped me define my practice of Asatru talked about that so many people who come to paganism just look at whatever Christianity is and try to do the opposite. And they've literally thrown the baby out with the bathwater, because because religion, organized religion, Christian religion, for all of its esoteric problems, which we could spend a long time dissecting, the things that it does well and should do, and that we are trying to do, is to establish community and to be faithful to each other, and to be, and to build bonds of stewardship and camaraderie and brotherhood and all that sort of thing. And a lot of that's been lost, and it's not all religion's fault. It's our civilization is too mobile. We're too atomized. Blah, blah, blah. You've heard this lecture before.
No, but I mean, I think one of the things that's nice on here is we get to contextualize our tendency to be old men repeating stories or saying the same thing over and over again. Is we got a different audience all the time. We have a core audience. We have a lot of people that, every week we've got an audience. This is the first time they've heard it. So appreciate the grace that provides a little bit. Some of the people over in the chat are also, recognizing it's one of the things when Hinduism and Buddhism have been exported to North America. Very often it is, an exotic spice to put on whatever your mundane existence is. And it's very far from the very serious, very pious actual practice of some of these things that are extremely organized, extremely disciplined, very often involve deification and absolute obedience to whoever your guru is, to whoever the head of your school or your practice is. In Buddhism, it is much more strict than I think the Southern Baptist Christianity that they're emerging from is in practice in its true sense. But oftentimes I think there is a convenience in not looking too deep at it. Pick something that looks fun and pretend. And as a little aside, I had a friend like this. He wanted something spiritual in his life, but he didn't want to actually have any rules or anything that governed his code of conduct. So I think he's done what a lot of Americans have done. And he created in his mind like a pretend buddy Jesus that's just cool with everything. Oh, Jesus understands me. Jesus is my homie. Like Jesus gets it. Never having read anything about Jesus, never having read the Bible, never having read any of the gospel accounts. He just made up a fictional Jesus that rubber stamps everything he does as being okay and making him feel better at night. And not only do I think it's really wrongheaded and ultimately unfulfilling because he knows it's not true, but it's also grossly disrespectful to Jesus and the millions of followers that actually believe in that. And that's one of the, I don't think I emphasize this enough when people ask when I came to Asatru. One of the things was a genuine, I don't know if this Jehovah exists or doesn't, but if he does, I'm not going to be insincere and disrespectful in my worship. I don't believe in these things, and I believe that he is bad, and what he wants us to do is bad and ignoble. And so I'm going to be upfront and noble in my expression of parting ways with that. And I think that facing truth is something that it's uncomfortable for a lot of folks, especially when it involves taking a hard look at your, deeply held spiritual values. Mary Mitchell asks, when one uses a credit card, they are promising to pay back the debt as this is an oath. However, how does Asatru deal with the interest in addition to the original amount owed? Alan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think using a credit card rises to the level of an oath. I understand that it is, it's a contract. So in the broadest possible scope of the word oath, it is, you are making a promise to pay in accord with the terms of the contract. And the contract that you sign with the credit card company says, I will pay this debt in full at the end of the month. And if I don't pay it in full at the end of the month, then you, credit card company, will charge interest on that amount that remains unpaid. And so that interest is certainly a component of the debt that you have created with that credit card company, which says a couple of things. Number one, don't use credit cards except as a billing convenience. Pay your credit cards off at the end of the month, every month in full. if you're using your credit cards to float living expenses, you got to live lower on the hog until you get all that debt paid off. Secondly, I conceptually, like in my original iteration as an attorney, I practiced creditor bankruptcy law. I thought I was going to go in there and single-handedly make all these deadbeat debtors pay the bills that they rightfully owed, and yeah. I've evolved in a lot of ways since that day, mainly to know that sort of interest-based banking is operates to the spiritual detriment of our people. I have no qualms at all. In case you didn't hear me the first 6 times I said it in this show, I practice bankruptcy law. I file bankruptcies for people. I have helped people file bankruptcies on their own. These banks will steal you blind and come back for more. And, but that's how they make money. I have very strong spiritual reservations about doing that. That's why I don't practice that side of the law anymore. So that all that being said, now to finally answer the question, I don't think that Asatru as a religion has anything specific to say about should you pay the interest on your credit card debt or not. Should you honor your obligations? Absolutely. To the maximum extent possible, that doesn't involve putting you or your family into penury. Yes, pay your bills, live frugally, and you will sleep better at night. And
yeah, what Alan
if any of the big banks are listening, go pound sand.
That's so. I think, and I get it. There's a degree of ambiguity. If you borrow from a fellow Asatru, or if you borrow from anybody that you know on a handshake and you promise to pay them a certain amount of interest, do right by your word on that. Absolutely. We live in a system to where you are often coerced into really unfavorable situations due to people that do not have your best interests at heart. Don't be a dirtbag. You should pay your obligations. That's fine as a general rule. But there are a lot of people who take advantage of the way the system is set up to put you in a perpetual state of indentured servitude. And that's to be avoided if possible. And especially where the law allows for the possibility of casting that yoke off, that's a really good thing to do. And the lending institutions of credit cards function under that system, are in league with that system. That system works to their benefit every day. We should be very wise to trying to make the best use of the system provided for us to, win the game. There's a lot of rules that successful people do that we feel uncomfortable with, but we didn't make the rules of the game. We have the hand that we're dealt. Figuring out the way to do those things judiciously is an advisable thing. And I think that goes with accepting, government handouts or whatever else. It comes out of your tax money that is involuntarily taken from you. It's going to go to someone. I think you are the most judicious in using that to the benefit of yourself or your folk, as opposed to, abdicating your entitlement to any of that and having it go somewhere else. That's something to keep in mind. We're not making the rules. When you're in a spot to vote or contribute to legislation to make the rules, then yeah, by all means, try to do that in a way that's in keeping with our values. But once the rules have been laid out, you got to play to win too.
And I will say again, if you are struggling to pay your bills, and I don't mean like any individual you, but people who are struggling to pay their bills, if you've got more than $10,000 in credit card debt, email me through runestone.org. I will spend a couple of minutes with you giving you the thumbnail evaluation. And because bankruptcy is like any other business decision, it can help you, it can hurt you. But in many situations, it's worth thinking about. And it's also in many situations worth considering just stopping paying your bills. For some people are judgment proof. If you don't have anything, you don't have any income that they can attach, and you don't have any property they can attach, let them call you. You can talk to Randy from India and entertain him and give yourself something to do, but don't break your own back, and certainly don't feel guilt or shame about not being able to meet your obligation to these crooks, because I no longer have any love for that system that games us more than we game them. That's for sure.
Well said. Question for Alan. This last Sunday, Pope died at 88. Some say our enemies are doing Romulus rituals to turn our next leader against us. What is your insight into 88 constellations and King Arthur and Barbarossa sleeping until they must awaken to defend their land, be reborn? Could this be from a tradition of a Siegfried figure who will be reborn to defend us?
Well, if it is, I hope somebody found the cord to the alarm clock and plugged it back in, because it's long overdue. I do think that if that sort of thing's going on, and I have, I was aware that Pope Francis, and he's the one who resigned, right? He wasn't the
No, that was Benedict. Pope Francis is the commie pope.
Oh, so this is the current pope, is the one who just died.
Last week he was the current pope. There is no current pope.
Well, sorry. See, that shows how much I know. Yes, it would certainly be well in keeping with the Christian tradition to pilfer another of our legends and rituals. Just like, what did we just celebrate? Easter, just like Jesus did with bunnies and eggs. It would, I'd like to have a long talk with those sorts of people. I mean, I think their belief is sincere. I think they feel the same sort of woe, maybe the right word. They feel the same sense of dread about how far into chaos and disorder our civilization has descended. Posit whether they're mostly the cause of that or not, or maybe the agents who are working actively to undermine Western civilization are taking apart the church as just a byproduct of that. I do think that it is a wonderful, hopeful type of legend that Arthur or Barbarossa, I'm less familiar with, will one day awaken and start smiting some of the miscreants and setting things back aright. Until then, I think it's our job. Does that answer the question? Well, I'm close.
There's some stuff about constellations and a lot of stuff that I'm not really necessarily familiar with his reference, but something I wanted to kind of I don't know, reiterate or say on it.
There can't be constant, the earth is the center of the universe, you know
So,
that, right?
Well, one of the there is, and I'm trying to be careful on how I word this because I don't mean to squash anybody's, if you sincerely believe that's the case, there might be something to it, but something I'd like to say, the idea of let's sit around and wait until somebody else comes and fixes stuff for us is anathema to our soul and what it means to live heroically. If that is the case, and everything you're saying is accurate, then go out there and spend your life trying to make this world the best it can be. Rally your fellows to do so. Get part of the team, help the AFA to do that. And then if Arthur or Barbarossa or Holger Danske appears and is ready to resume imperium of our folk and lead us into a golden age, then cool. We are best suited at that point to be able to serve that regime and make that work. By all means, get in position for it if that's what you want. But we do that best by living heroically. If the sleeping king were to awaken, certainly he wants to be surrounded by knights and heroes, not by a bunch of people that sat around waiting for him to reveal himself. But secondly, that's not really the idea of people stepping up heroically and shaping the world according to their will is the ideal for our folk. We don't want to wait on someone else to do it. That abdication of responsibility isn't a noble use of our time. So even were that the case, going out there and making the best of our current situation is the best way that we can show allegiance to the sleeping king if that's what's going to happen. And on the much more likely chance that we don't see that, or that we don't see that in our lifetime, we will still be more successful. We will have lived heroically. We will have accomplished things for our folk. So going out there and living a life of heroism and accomplishment wins in both of those scenarios, even were that the case. But I don't see any connection to the age at which the commie pope died having any, necessary implication to any of the prophecies about the sleeping king. Allen, Lawspeaker, I need your recommendation. Oh no, I read your recommendation. Gates of Fire by Pressfield. I couldn't tell you how impressive of a recommendation that was, given the topic of the discussion a few episodes back. Right on.
It always heartens me when someone reads something that I recommend and enjoys it. So thank you for rotating that back to me. Gates of Fire. I will now recommend to everyone else who has an hour free every night to get through this excellent book. It is a historical fiction book, an account of the Greeks at Thermopylae. And the word Thermopylae means gates of fire. That's the title of the book. And for those of you who don't know, that's that's where the 300 Spartans held back the 200,000 Persians. But the book goes into a great deal of detail about Spartan culture, and talks a lot about the nobility that the Spartan warrior felt and why a man would be willing to go to certain death to defend his family and his folk. And the narration of the battle itself is gripping and certainly is well worth the time invested in the read. But to me, it's more the fact that it puts it into a historical context in a way that a movie cannot do. I mean, certainly there's a little bit of that in the movie, The 300, and good for them. They portrayed a little bit of that, but that book and a couple of more, and actually Pressfield wrote another one. I can't quite think of the title, but another account of the Greeks at war, and super good. I think a personification of, in a lot of ways, what we're trying to reconstitute. A folk that we are willing to step into the breach for.
All right. Sarah donated $41 to help us pay off Njordshof. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you guys all for your generosity this evening. Then, just a couple of short hours, we have raised hundreds of dollars to get us towards that goal. And it's quite an accomplishment and very much appreciated. So that is all of the questions that we have lined up at present. Alan, do you have more you would like to say on the topic this evening, or anything you would like to impart to our audience?
I could wax on and often do, but I want to say again, thanks to all of those who have donated to us. Thanks to all of our folk builders who worked so hard to bring us all together. Thank you, Matt, for being such a pest when I'm ignoring my responsibilities. I know it's frustrating for you, and it's not intentional on my part. I do try to get everything done that I have to get done in a day. And I am going to the bank tomorrow to get that little chore taken care of. We all work really hard to get this stuff happening. And, for all of you guys who are looking in and you're thinking that this is the place for you, it really is. It really is the place for you. There's nothing like it to come in and to see how far we've come. We've got a long way to go, but we have made a lot of progress in the last 20 years, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
So, guys, next week, we have a very special episode. On those months that fall with 5 Wednesdays, we get the special treat of having a fifth of brandy. So the fifth Wednesday of months with those many Wednesdays in them have Whit and Brandy Fassett hosting a show, and usually she will bring on an assortment of gifjur to impart their wisdom to you guys and to talk about Asatru topics through a female perspective. So I invite you guys to take part in that and join her with your enthusiastic questions and eager listening and participation. It's going to be a great episode. Her and the ladies do a great job.
We should also say, I apologize for interrupting you again. We should also say congratulations, Trent and Madison.
We should absolutely say that. So Gothi Trent East and his lovely wife, Madison, welcomed a baby boy into the world today. He is a big boy, and we are all very excited for him and for the family he is born into. They are some of our very best people and people who I personally love dearly. So congratulations, guys.
Big time.
All right, folks, we'll appreciate you as always. I look forward. Again, I don't get to talk to you next week. Perhaps I'll join you in the audience, and I will talk to you the first Wednesday of next month. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. This show is very much a listener-supported program. with your guys' questions, certainly with you guys' generous donations, and your guys' faithful just showing up and taking a look and listening to us and spending the evening with us. So thank you guys. Please, if you haven't already, check us out, runestone.org. We would love to have you on the team as we move forward and do great things together. Until next time, hail the Iseer, hail the folk, hail the AFA. Remember, victory never sleeps.